I am so excited to be here. It has been a 2.5-year process to get in front of you. And finally today we are here. I am so excited. Just a little bit of...
You just flew right past that.
What do you mean?
You have to fill them in on what 2.5 years means. I'll share that. Ted has been persistent. And for 2.5 years... routinely, I would get
bugging these people.
Very nice postcard talking about current events and business challenges. And so every few months, I'd get a postcard from Ted. Hey, and a little note. Dennis, I'd love to speak at one of your programs. Here's some information I think you'll enjoy. And I stuck it on my wall. And about 1.5 years went by, and received another postcard. And as we are getting ready for this program, I thought, Ted has been sending me postcards for 2 years now, 2.5 years. I should give this man a call. And so here he is.
Yes, and thank you so much. And thank you for being here. Just a little bit about me. Most unusual thing about me is my family. I have a 7'2" son. Yeah, and people come out of the woodwork and ask him 2 questions. What 2 questions do you think he always gets? How tall are you, and? How's the weather? Well, actually, Roger, you got to be careful. I heard this story about somebody who was 7'2" and wasn't in a very good mood, and some short guy asked him, how's the weather up there? He took the drink he was sipping, poured it on the guy's head, and said, it's raining. So you may not want to do that with somebody 7'2". Now, how tall are you? In fact, we were in Chipotle the other day. Guy behind us started to laugh, so just have to ask. And we said, yeah, we know. I said, Steven, just have a T-shirt made up with the answers on the back. It'd be so much easier. Anyway, here's a picture of him at the John Glenn International Airport in Columbus, Ohio, where I'm from. Fortunately for his sake, his sister's sake, my sake, he did come back successfully from his tour in Iraq. And today he runs a tattoo shop in Columbus. There's a picture of me with him after I got my first tattoo. I am the short one. But I do not want this session to be about me today. I want it to be about you. Now, who's been to these sessions before where some guru shows up and throws up, or they pour and you snore, or they're the sage on the stage? Be truthful. Who's been to sessions like this before? Well, I'm going to show you how different this is going to be. If you could kindly stand up and come to the front of the room. Stand up and come. Now, don't worry, this is safe. You won't have to embarrass yourself. Won't have to sing or dance or exercise or role play. Just come on up. Just getting up out of those chairs. For those of you who did have a little fun last night, you're going to get the blood flowing. We're going to change places here. Good-looking group. All the ugly people must be next door. Oh, just kidding. Just kidding. Come on up. Wow. They're still coming, Roger. Well, it is early on a Thursday morning. Oh, my gosh. So we're going to keep this nice and simple. Just 2 questions. In fact, there are no right or wrong answers to these questions. It's just what's true for you most of the time. All right? So here's question number 1. Do you tend to be laid back, easygoing, go with the flow, don't worry, be happy? Are you more driven and focused and goal-oriented? Okay, I know you could go either way, all right? But where would you find yourself? All right, question number 2. Do you tend to like to work by yourself on tasks and projects? Are you more of an individualist, more of a loner? Or do you really have to be around other people to bring out your best efforts? 2 questions. Any questions on the questions? Okay, so if you tend to be laid back, easygoing, and for the most part you like to work by yourself, if you could raise your hands, please. Okay, if I could have you over here. If you have a regular seat, go ahead and take it. Otherwise, try not to disturb things too much. So laid back, easygoing, primarily like to work by yourself. And go ahead and sit down. It's going to take a while. No, but I'm forcing you into it, Roger. Okay, so go ahead and sit down. Now, at each table I need a scribe. Very safe job being a scribe because you don't have to think. Everybody else at your table has to think for you. So maybe, Ron, you want to join these folks here? I know you like to work by yourself, but just humor me here. So who would like to be the scribe at this table? Bueller, Bueller, Bueller. As long as you can read your own writing, it's all that matters. Thank you. You've been voluntold. Who's been voluntold? Doug. Okay, you're right in the center, okay? And then over here, who would like to be our scribe? Yes, I know. I'm finding that out, Roger. Thank you so much. Okay? Yeah, you have a question. Okay, well, hang on a second. We're gonna get to the driven just here in a second. They're laid back and like to work by themselves. Yeah, the driven people, we're coming up. Okay. You hang in there. I promise. Okay. And by the way, if you get with a group and you don't like them, you can change. That's perfectly acceptable. Okay? And for this group back here, who would like to be the scribe? If you don't mind, like, working together. Okay, if you can handle all these men and we have another lady here. Yeah, and that's why I put out the tablets and the pens. All right, so that's group number 1. Oh my goodness. Group number 2, laid back, easy going, but you love people. Your hands, please. Nobody likes people? Oh my goodness. Only you? Oh, well, because you like people, we can't have you sitting by yourself, Marianne, so hang in there for a second. All right, now we're going to get to your people. Okay, well, the two of you, all right, sisters from different mothers. Why don't you sit up front here, okay, the two of you. This group likes to work by themselves, and they're laid back. This group here likes people. Well, then you can come over here. Tough crowd, Roger. Tough crowd. All right, our next group. You like to work by yourself, but you're very driven, focused, goal-oriented. Over here. Now. Move it. Right there. Take your people. Hurry up. These two tables. Okay? All right, and if we could have and if you want to flip to decide who's going to be the scribe, I think you've already got that handled. Okay, and who is going to take notes here? Okay, right there in the center. And for this group here, who would like to take the notes? As long as you can read your own writing, it's all that matters. Who would like to scribe? Okay, you've been voluntold. All right, if I did this properly, the last group, you're very outgoing, vivacious people, right? Go party. No, if you could go back there. Go back there. Looks like we got a couple tables. And once again, if we could have a scribe for each table. And I will give the assignment to the scribes. Scribes, here is your assignment. Given our common behavioral style, you'll find out that you have similarities with the great people at your table. So what I'm looking for, 2 lists. 2 lists. All right? List number 1. What are some of the positive traits we share? How have we been able to be so successful at our transmission shops, outside organizations, home, church, school, volleyball league? What are some of the good qualities that we have in common? There's going to be a lot of them, else you wouldn't be here, right, Roger? List number 2, some potential downsides, though. May or may not be true. Maybe once circulated a nasty rumor about you, right? So I'm going to give you a few minutes to get your list together. Then I'm going to tell you what I think are on your lists. We'll compare and contrast, and we'll see how close I came. Now, something may come up, and you could say, Ted, it could go either way. Put it in the first category, as a positive strength. So any questions, scribes? And by the way, if you see somebody at your table you don't know, part of this exercise is to get you to network. Go ahead and introduce yourselves, and then come up with 2 lists. The positive traits we share and the not so positive that we share. Once again, any questions, scribes? All right, then. As they say in New Jersey, twalk, twalk, twalk. All right, so 2 lists, the pluses and the not so pluses. Go. All right, let's go ahead and get started. Why are we doing this? Well, I'm going to tell you, Roger. According to the Carnegie Foundation, 15% of our success on the job is due to our technical knowledge. And I know you have plenty of technical knowledge, especially if you've gone to the sessions next door. But 85% of our success on the job is due to what? How we get along with people. So let's talk about people. Now, we're going to make fun of the 4 styles of employees and customers. Don't anybody feel offended as we do. These are caricatures. You know what a caricature is, right? An exaggeration. But the first group, I can certainly make fun of because I would be sitting among you. You're analyticals. Analyticals are thinkers. We have a high need to be right. We're very security conscious. Our motto is notice our efficiency. We cross every T, we dot every I, but we may be associated with analysis paralysis. We subscribe to Consumer Reports. Any famous analyticals come to mind besides this esteemed side of the room? Can you think of any? Well, I asked my daughter. Yeah, Einstein's a good one, Roger. I asked my daughter when she came home from college. She said, Sir Isaac Newton. I said, why Newton? She said, well, because of him, we got physics and calculus. Or how about Dilbert from the comic strips? I saw this one strip recently where he's sitting behind his computer, marveling at the technology, you know, the 35-inch monitor, the 500-gigabyte hard drive, and he says, I feel a song coming on. People who don't need people are the happiest people. That would be an analytical. The motto of the analytical is get it right. Or ready, aim, 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 aim. Let's form a subcommittee, aim, fire. Now, my daughter, who I mentioned, is an analytical. She was the valedictorian of her high school class. She was the type of kid where at 2 in the morning, I'd knock on her bedroom door and say, Chelsea, that's enough homework for tonight. Go to bed. Her older sister, who only graduated 5th in her class, said, Chelsea, once you get the gate, quit. Now, Chelsea hasn't quite got the idea. She came home from college. I said, honey, how are things going? She said, Dad, they run the university so well. Only an analytic would have answered the question that way. The normal 21-year-old would say, hey, Dad, parties are great. Well, maybe you wouldn't tell your old man that, but we analyticals, we just look at the world differently. We don't get caught up in the office gossip, who's having an affair with whom. No, we just keep our nose to the grindstone. We get the job done. And we get rewarded for doing good work by what? Getting more work to do, of course. And we can't say no. And if we were an animal, it'd be something like a wise owl. Now, I was at a presentation recently where the person speaking obviously was not one of us, was not an analytical, because he called us Seymours. Seymour, yeah, no matter how much data you show an analytical, they always want to see more. But let's see, how close did I come? Oh, by the way, if we would be, I think I told you, we'd be something like a wise owl if we were an animal. So, Doug, how close did I come? Let me see if I can get back over to you so that we can hear you. Okay, well, what are some of your many strengths?
Our strength is that we're independent. Yes. You know, we can work by our own.
Just put us in a closet, get the job done, we'll get back to you.
We have more time for reflection and creativity.
Because we're not caught up in the drama.
More control without reliance on others. Tend to stay in our own lane, and we enjoy what we do.
Yes. All true, all good. What possibly could be a downside?
Well, the downside is
just too humble. That's it.
No, we put stress on both sides because we have less stress because we're doing what we like to do, but then there can become the stress because we're more dependent on ourselves than others. So that can create stress and that we may not accomplish everything we want because we aren't asking for that help. Right. We can take longer to complete our tasks, again, not having others with us, and we can be more self-critical.
Yes, definitely. Great job. Okay, here's what we know about us analyticals. We are perfectionistic. We primarily like detail and work in process or technology rather than people, and we start our statements with, you're right, Roger, I think. As opposed to our next group, this dynamic duo right here. They've been smiling the whole time. They're wonderful people. We call them amiables. Amiables are relators. They're warm, sensitive, kind, compassionate. Analyticals are good listeners. Amiables are better listeners. They just want everyone to get along. Peace, love, harmony. Let's hold hands, sing Kumbaya. Yes, analyticals don't like conflict. Amiables abhor conflict. Yes. Any famous amiables come to mind besides these two wonderful ladies? Gandhi, I think of Oprah, Martin Luther King, Kenny Rogers, Mr. Rogers. Marcus Welby, MD. Anybody remember the TV doctor? Roger, do you ever see him send out a bill? No! He was an amiable. The motto of the amiable is ready, ready, ready. You can almost hear Mr. Rogers saying this, couldn't you? Aim, fire. And if they were an animal, it would be something like, oh, a golden retriever. I mean, they're the type of people when they walk in the room, they light up the room, as opposed to other styles, they light up the room by walking out of the room. They're the glue that holds everything together. You always like to see them. They're like a comfortable pair of shoes. They wear well. Yes, and if they were an animal, it would be something like a golden retriever. Yes, yes, yes. Well, how close did I come? What are some strengths of your... Okay. Tell me, Marianne.
So we were talking, both of us, Rhonda and I, and we're trusting.
Yes.
Of people. Yes, and we don't lose control. We keep things focusing on the solutions more than the problems. Right. We lift people up.
We try not to lose control.
We focus on that, right?
Yes.
We lift people up was one of the things that...
do. Right.
We try to empower others because we see their strengths. Yes. Sometimes they don't see that in themselves.
Yes.
Yeah, and then what some of the,
and any downsides?
Yeah, downsides, definitely. Your feelings can get hurt.
Yes.
A lot of times you're not taken seriously because they see that as a weakness instead of a strength. Right, right. People do not get us.
Okay, all right. And they should.
We're just two of us here.
Yeah, exactly, right. Here's what we know about the amiable. Yeah, they're friendly, calm, loyal, likes to get along with people, hates conflict, gets attached to people and things, doesn't rock the boat. As Marianne just said, they start their statements with, I feel. Unlike our next style, which we call the administrator. Bottom line, get it done, just the facts, don't mess around, show me the money. Yeah! There's lots of famous administrators because administrators get things done. And the world rewards results. Now, they may drive over their grandmothers to get things done, but they get things done. Any famous administrators come to mind? Okay, well, we'll roll with that one. I think of... that's okay. I think of Graham Kerr. Let's see, Martha Stewart, Lee Iacocca, General Patton, Steven Spielberg, a director. On the downside, administrators are associated with ulcers. They don't get them. In the extreme, they have a type A personality. Do you know what extreme type A personality is? It's like an inner anger that tends to cut their lives short. They don't listen well. They lack tact. They're stubborn. Their emphasis is on dominance. They have theme songs. Either hail to the chief, or I did it my way. Their mottos are just get her done, or ready, aim, fire, fire, fire. They don't take time to stop and smell the roses, and if they were an animal, either be a pit bull or a lion. Now, the difference between us analyticals and those administrators is we analyticals like to work on one thing at a time and do it perfectly, right? Administrators, they're working on 18 things at a time. Doing them all well? As a matter of fact, you reward an administrator to give them a 19th responsibility because they're very much into success and especially control. Success and control, very important to administrators. But let's see how close I came. So who's our scribe for our first? Oh, well, of course. So some of your many, many, many strengths.
Get it done.
Yep. Get her done.
Goal-oriented, driven, dependable.
Just the way she's reading this list.
Organized, jack of all trades, or the wild card. Very professional.
Yes.
Our not so positives are that we're control freaks and perfectionists, hard to work with, very high expectations,
Of yourselves and others.
expecting the me out of others.
The what?
Expecting the me out of other people.
Oh, you want them to be just like you.
Yes.
Or have the same standards that you do. Sure.
I'd also like to add my nickname at work is the Pitbull.
Yes. Okay. Yep, my point exactly. All right, I love this picture. The administrator. Impatient, bottom-line oriented, type A personality, blunt, desires results, let nothing stand in his or her way, and they start off their statements with, I know. Unlike our fourth and final style, 'cause all the rest of you, of course, the way you're sitting around makes sense, our final style we call associators. Associators like people who think to be exciting and fun. They want to make the grand entrance. They want to be the center of attention. Generally speaking, associators are, well, generally speaking. And what are they generally speaking about? Their favorite subject, which is? They tend not to be as organized. They tend not to be into details. They've got the big picture, the grand vision. Then somebody like the analytical or administrator has to clean up after them. As a result, their motto is ready, fire, aim. Now, every group has their strengths. The way that associators are so effective is just look at them. They got great charisma. People are just naturally attracted to them. Looks like they know where they're going. People want to come along for the ride. At least it's going to be fun. So they make great CEOs, great salespeople, great ambassadors, great motivators, great liaisons, great politicians. The motto of the associators, get appreciated or get noticed. As a result, their animal would be a, you got it, a peacock. All right, but let's see how close I came. Who is the scribe for this esteemed group? Okay. Oh, my gosh, you had a tough job here, ma'am. All right. So some of your many strengths.
Strengths, we have flexible, focused. We disagree with your unorganized statement.
Okay. I stand corrected.
Team players, transparent, very good at communication, adaptable, personable, and motivated.
Oh, good. Anything that's not so positive?
Assertive, opinionated, overconfident, sometimes can show as arrogance, sometimes overly money-driven, and competitive.
And other people's perspectives of the realities, whether it's true or not. It's kind of interesting when you ran that list. I think that's kind of a hybrid with this other group here. Yeah, in fact, who sees themselves in multiple quadrants? Okay? And it's not good to put people in boxes, all right? But this helps us understand employee and customer behavior. As you were just saying, I see a lot of similarities here between the administrator and associator. Hey, if it ain't broke, break it. 80%, that's good enough. Let's move on to something new, exciting, challenging, fun, interesting. Let's look at bog down the details. Across the top there, an analytical administrator, or perhaps along the bottom, the amiable associator. I feel like a meteorologist. Or where I find myself, the analytical amiable. But we tend not to get diagonals, like an analytical associator. Nah. Nor an administrator amiable. Again, probably not. And wherever you find yourself, you're probably much stronger in that quadrant 10 or 15 years ago. For instance, who's right brain? Very creative, think outside the box, stretch to try new things. Okay? Who's left brain? Very linear, logical, step by step. Over time, we tend to become more whole brain. And same thing with this. We move more toward the center. And sometimes you develop a style because your boss is really strong in that quadrant. You do it just for survival. The associator, dramatic. Everything's the best stuff or the worst stuff. You believe what happened to me today. They're talkers, like to talk about their favorite subject, which is themselves. They're visionary, big picture oriented. Tend not to be as organized unless you're borrowing from this quadrant. Tend not to be into details, and they start off their statements with, I believe. I believe. Do you see how there could be some cause for conflicts here among employees, customers? For instance, who has teenage sons and daughters? Okay, who is still teenage sons and daughters? All right, my teenage daughter Allison, if I would say up, she would say, if I would say right, she would say, well, sideways, but you get the idea. I thought maybe the issue was that she's a teenager and I'm not, or that she's female and I'm not. But what I realized was it was just a difference in behavioral styles. I am an analytical amiable. Allison is an administrator associate. She's a lifeguard. The other day she was on the phone talking with one of her students. She, of course, was talking, and he says, ouch. She continues to talk, He says, ouch. She barrels right ahead. He says, ouch again. Then finally, she said, okay, what's going on over there? He said, you were talking so loud, you're bursting my eardrum. That is my daughter. She does not have an inside voice. In fact, we could be at a sporting event. Alice could be on the other side of the field, and I could pick out her voice. Of course, she was the cheerleader. So as an analytical amiable, I'd be saying to Allison as the administrator associate, honey, can you tone it down, smooth it out, chill a little bit? And she was probably thinking, Dad, when are you going to get a backbone? So who has an issue like this? What could you do about it? We suggest a process called mirroring, which means become a bit more like the customer or the employee. Let me give you an example. Let's say Dilbert, our analytical, was going to have an encounter with Jim Carrey, our associate. Could you imagine that? What could they do if they wanted to make that encounter a success? Well, Dilbert get a life if that's possible, and Carrey could tone it down if that's possible. Maybe somewhere in the middle. In other words, if they start talking slow, you start talking slow. They cross their arms, you cross your arms. Well, of course, you may think, well, won't they think I'm making fun of them? No, they'll just say there's something I like about that Ron. I just can't quite put my finger on it. What's the golden rule? Although the administrators have their own version, them who's got the gold makes the rules. But this actually begs something called the platinum rule from Dr. Tony Alessandra. The platinum rule, which is treat others the way they would like to be treated, not necessarily the way we would like to be treated. Let me give you an example. Let's say, okay, we're going to use your example, Roger. Let's say Dilbert is working at the White House. And Trump comes to Dilbert and says, Dilbert, I need a report, and leaves. Doesn't have time for chit-chat. How's the wife? How's the kids? You watched the baseball game last night? No, he's got 19 things on his plate. What's Dilbert going to do? Well, it's an analytical. He's going to go back to his cubicle. He's going to produce a 300-page tome. He's going to cross every T, dot every I, get it exactly perfect. Is that what the president wants? Nope. Bottom line, executive summary, you're hired, you're fired. Let's move on. So if Dilbert wants to keep his job at the White House, he better deal with the boss the way the boss wants to be dealt with, not the way we feel most comfortable. For those of you who are scribes, actually everybody could do this because I put some of that fine hotel stationery in front of you, for most of you anyway. If you could please write down these 3 words. Write down these 3 words. And the 3 words are, I like you. I like you. I like you. And between the first and second words, put in the word am. What does this say? What does it say? What does it mean? We tend to like and trust people whom we perceive to be like ourselves. And we dislike and we distrust people whom we perceive to be different. I bet you really enjoy talking to the people at your table, right? You know why? Because they're just like you. But can you be too much alike? Yep, I think so. My wife and her dad exactly alike, always butting heads. Do opposites attract? Who has a spouse, a partner, or a significant other who's the exact opposite behavioral style as you? Oh, me too, me too, me too. Like I said, I am an analytical amiable. Both my wife and my daughter are administrator associates. In fact, my wife's motto is, I may be wrong, but I'm never in doubt. That's my wife. See, for long-term relationships, we tend to pick people up pluses where we feel we have minuses. People who round us out and make us whole. The key to success in a long-term relationship isn't you have the same behavioral style. You have the same goals, morals, values, objectives, aspirations. You have those in common. Behavioral style just falls by the wayside and makes things more interesting. Now, don't do what it only took me 20 years of marriage to figure out. I married my wife, Luann, because she was the exact opposite of me. What did I spend the first 20 years of our marriage trying to do? Where were you 23 years ago? How stupid was that? There are synergies in our differences. For instance, before we come to a social gathering like this, I can wind my wife up. She walks through the door. She's the life of the party. It takes the pressure off of me. It's wonderful. And people will give you cues as to what their behavioral style is, right? I was doing this session in Dallas recently, and the organizer comes and says, I just love conferences. We're going to have fun today. What style do you think she was? Associator, right? Went on to Houston. The organizer comes in, sets up the AV, sets up the workbooks, barely said a word. What style do you think she was? Probably analytical administrator, right? So if I would have gone to her and said, hey, baby, I'm glad you're here. We're going to rock now. She would have gone, whoa. In fact, I was on a sales call recently where the prospect started yelling objections at me even before I entered the room. What style do you think he was? Administrator. What style did I say I was? The analytical amiable. So my natural reaction was, oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to upset you. I'll just escape out the side door here, okay? You have a good life. But then I thought to myself, you know what, Ted? You've already blown this sales call. So what I did was I went over to his desk. I picked up a book. I slammed it down. I said, let me tell you something. I saw this transformation. He puffed up his chest and went, all right, an administrator just like me. Let's go at it. He didn't know that I was an analytical amiable. He thought I was an administrator just like him. This stuff actually works. Once again, I do not want this session to be about me. I want this to be about you. So what I'd like you to do at your tables is to answer 3 questions. And here's the first one. Given what we just talked about, what is your predominant behavioral style or styles? Are you an analytical, amiable, administrator, associator, or some combination? Analytical, amiable, administrator, associator, some combo. All right, so that's question number 1. Question number 2, given that that's your predominant behavioral style, what might a fellow employee or a customer complain about the behavior of your style or styles? Or even a spouse, a kid. What might somebody, especially if they're in a different quadrant, what might they complain about the behavior or behaviors of your style or styles? And then finally, question number 3, what could you do or what have you done about it? What could you do or what have you done about it? Anybody know what emotional intelligence is? Generally, it's where you're aware of your emotions and how you're affecting the emotions of another person. Do you know what % of American adults actually have that ability? Only 36%. Not true in this room. I'm sure it's closer to 100%. But what we're going to be doing in this session is try to develop your EQ, your emotional intelligence. And so answering question number 3 will help you along the way. So 3 questions I want you to ponder. First of all, what is your predominant behavioral style or styles? And again, your choices are analytical, amiable, administrator, associator. Question number 2, given that is your style or styles, at least you think so, what might someone complain about the behavior or behaviors of that style or styles, especially if they're in a different quadrant? And then finally, what could you do about it, or what have you already done about it? So, of course, the analyticals are writing it down first, and the associators can't hardly wait to talk about it. So however you're comfortable, and the administrators were done yesterday, okay? So, yeah, please take a few moments to everybody get a chance at your table to answer these 3 questions. So hopefully I've given you some ammunition that you can discuss over drinks tonight. And if you come across somebody who's wearing your same wristband, one of your brothers or sisters, you have permission to immediately start talking with them. But I thought you'd also appreciate our last quiz on this topic. My goodness, I think I've turned everybody into associators. So if you would, please. Okay. If you could copy down these 4 geometric shapes, either on that fine hotel stationery or the back of your workbook. There's silence in the room. Okay. And if you could please circle the one that's calling out to you. What would you say is your favorite among the square, the circle, the triangle, or the squiggle? All right. You're going with the square? You like the square. You like the squiggle. Okay. Go to that part of the room, will you? No, I'm not even going to put you over there. You're back there that's your people back there. All right. If you chose the square, that doesn't mean you're square. It means you're probably analytical. If you went with the circle, of course you're amiable. All right? Administrators like the triangle, and the party people, obviously, the squiggle. Okay? Okay. One of the takeaways from this is this process of mirroring. All right? Because we tend to like and trust people whom we perceive to be like ourselves. And we dislike and we distrust people whom we perceive to be unlike us. And politicians are excellent at this, right? They know to get your vote, what they need to do is show you how they are just like you. Because they'll walk away and that person will go, oh man, I just get that person. I'm going to vote for him. Because they have the ability to mirror. So mirror your employees and your customers. Who found this interesting? Okay, this is a very quick and dirty exercise that we did. You may be familiar with Myers-Briggs. Rather than 4 components, there's 16. I happen to be an INFJ. What I would suggest when you go back to your shops, have each of your employees take this free assessment and then talk about the results. Because like Dr. Tony Alessandra says, we want to be treated the way we want to be treated, not necessarily the way someone else would want to be treated. So figure out exactly what their personality style is by going to personalityperfect.com, and you can discuss the platinum rule. All right, thank you for trusting me on that. You can go back to your regular seats unless you really enjoy sitting with the people you're with. I would like to suggest to you that we all listen to the same radio station, all have the same favorite station. And to prove my point, I'm going to go off on a limb here. I'm going to interview, how about my analytical friends here? So, Ron, what radio station do you like to listen to?
Classic rock.
Classic rock. Okay, and that's your favorite as well, right? You like to listen to classic rock? Okay. Pretty much everything, okay? And your favorite station?
Anything but rap.
Anything but rap?
Classic rock and country.
Oh, my. I told you that I was in Dallas, and I was listening to a country station down there. Somebody requested a song for their ex-boyfriend. My Give-A-Damn's Busted. Have you heard that? Great song, great song. And your favorite?
Classic rock.
Classic rock? Okay, how about over here? Thank you for joining us, Bill.
Classic rock and country.
Classic rock, okay. And country, I told you.
Audible books.
Audible books. I'm dying here, all right?
I listen to a little bit of everything.
Okay, well, maybe I should just quit while I'm behind. I said we all listen to the same station. Do you prove me wrong? Mm-mm. You know what its callers are? You have the answer? Wait. I got to run back here. I got my answer man back here. What is it?
WIIFM.
And what does that stand for?
What's in it for me?
Yes, what's in it for me? It's the little radio station that plays in our heads all day long. We look at every situation to see how it's going to benefit us. If it does, we pay attention. If not, we tune it out. The interesting thing is all of our customers, all of our employees work exactly the same way. The other day I was riding along with my 7'2" son, and I started to say something I swore I would never, ever say when I was your age. And I could just see Stephen's eyes roll to the back of his head. He doesn't care about the old man's good old days. Stephen, when I was your age, we could buy a new car for $5,000. That's great, Dad, but you never bought one for me. I know that if I want to bond with my son, I got to talk about what? What interests him, which happens to be video games. Now, I don't know about you, and I'm still stuck on Pong from the 70s, and it's been a challenge to brush up a Nintendo, Xbox, Game Boy, GameCube, Kinect, Wii. And last week I was playing an oldie but a goodie, a video game with a guitar, Guitar Hero. But if I want to bond with him, I got to talk about what interests him, not what interests me. But who gets sales letters that say, I've been in town since 1905. The company was started by my great-grandfather. We have 10,000 installations, 15,000 satisfied clients. So what? Who cares? What's in it for me? Oh, where I used to work, I would get emails that would say something like this. I'm so-and-so. I'm in charge of such and such. Our objective is this and that. So what? Who cares? What's in it for me? Delete. Who's going to have to write an email when you go back to the shop next week? Kind of a silly question. How many emails are sent and received each day now per person? 115. You want to judge the effectiveness of that email? Count the number of pronouns. Number of I's versus the number of U's. the more use you have, and they're the what's in it for you to do it this way, the more effective you're going to be. In fact, Zig Ziglar said, you can get anything you want in this life if you show enough other people how to get what they want. And, you know, I wish I knew this when I was dating. I thought it was so important for me to show my date how wonderful, charismatic, and intelligent I was. Way too hard. What should I have done instead? Ladies, show how wonderful, intelligent, charismatic she was. Then she would have thought I was as a result, because everybody's listening to that same radio station, WIIFM. In fact, has anybody read this book, Lean In by Sheryl Sandberg, the chief operating officer at Facebook? She has a passage in the book that relates directly to WIIFM. Sheryl said, about a month after I joined Facebook, I got a call from Lori Gohler, a highly regarded senior administrator of marketing at eBay. Now, I knew Lori a bit socially, but she made it clear this was a business call and cut right to the chase. I want to apply to work with you at Facebook, she said. So I thought about calling you and telling you all the things I'm good at and all the things I'd like to do. Then I figured, well, everybody else was doing that. So instead, I want to ask you, what is your biggest problem? And how can I help solve it? What is your biggest problem? And how can I help solve it? Sheryl said, my jaw hit the floor. I'd hired thousands of people over the previous decade, and no one had ever said anything remotely like that. Lori put Facebook's needs front and center, not her own. It was a killer approach. WIIFM always is. Now, I thought that was the end of the story till I had an attendee ask me, well, where's Lori Gohler today? So I did a search on LinkedIn, and I found out that Lori Gohler is the vice president of human resources at Facebook. I had another attendee tell me Lori Gohler has absolutely no HR experience. That's the power of WIIFM. So if you want a customer or an employee to do something, figure out how they're going to benefit first. Figure out what's in it for them, and they're more likely to do it. Anybody know who this lady was? I heard it over here. Mary Kay. Mary Kay Ash from Mary Kay Cosmetics. Did you know what she said her business success was due to? She believed that every employee, every customer she encountered had an invisible sign under their neck that said, make me feel important. Make me feel important. And that's what she did. I mean, if you think about it, her whole business model was based upon that. Because her top reps were out there driving those pink Cadillacs, right? They feel pretty darn important, right? How did they get those cars? By making their customers feel more attractive, more important. By the way, this is very sad to me. What percent of women are 100% satisfied with the way they look? What percent of women, according to surveys, are totally happy with their physical appearance? 0? Well, actually, it is 1%. 1%. 1%. All right, next step. What percent of women think they're beautiful? Not perfect, all right, but just beautiful. And you could Google this. What percent of women think that they are beautiful? Any guesses? 4%. 4%. Now, guys, I don't know. All 4% of those beautiful women must be right here in this room, right? Wouldn't you agree? Okay. But here comes Mary Kay, and she gives you the ability to make yourself look more attractive, make yourself feel more important, and that's why she was successful. That is the number one need of employees and customers. They want to feel important. Make your people feel important. Okay, we talked about the four. Now you can go ahead and continue here in the workbooks. In the hymnals, I won't ask anybody to sing, but we'll jump in here and talk about the 4 generations of employees. The matures, the boomers, the Xers, and the Ys, or millennials. And the key to success in dealing with the 4 generations, getting back to Dr. Tony Alessandra's The Platinum Rule. Do unto others as they would like to have you do unto them. But first, let's learn about them. We learned about the 4 behavioral styles. Let's learn about the 4 generations. And again, these are generalizations. These could be caricatures, but it helps us understand how people operate. Here's the layout. First of all, we have the matures. Those are your customers who drive the classic cars that have been born before 1946. And what's important to them is recognition, willingness to sacrifice, hierarchy, and resistance to change. Next, we have the boomers, primarily born between 46 and 64. Where are my boomers? My people! Great! What we like is dedication, face time, team orientation, and we're focused on personal health and wellness. Next, Generation X, primarily born between 65 and 80. Where are my Xers? Hey! Fabulous! And what you're into is work-life balance, autonomy, flexibility, informality, diversity, and globally oriented. And then finally, the largest generation currently in the workforce, Generation Y or Millennials, born after 81. Where are my Ys? Yeah, look around the room, okay? What's important to you is feedback, recognition, fulfillment, advanced technology, fun, and open-mindedness. Let's do a deeper dive. First of all, for the matures, it was task orientation, rules of conduct, command and control. You did not question. You just did as you were told. This was, like during the Korean conflict, there was that militaristic top-down approach to society. And there's always been intergenerational conflict. I'm sure at some point the baby boomers went to their mature mothers and fathers and said, maybe there's a better way of doing things. And the mature said, no, this is the way it's always been done, always will be done this way. I mean, back then you had respect for authority. You followed directions. They wanted conformity and rules. So those are the matures, the folks born before 1946. Now we have the boomers. Boomers want meaningful work. They want to have a bottom line impact on the success in the organization, recognition and appreciation for their extra hours and hard work, and the financial rewards commensurate with that. Now, I heard not the Great Recession, but the Great Depression really wasn't over until about 1946. So a lot of the matures grew up during hard times. And they wanted to impress upon their baby boomer sons and daughters that we don't want you to have to struggle like we did. So go make something of yourselves. So many boomers, like you, did. Next, we have Generation X, who also wants meaningful work, but they want a healthy work-life balance, a freedom to do their job, a boss who's sensitive to their need for work flexibility and family values, relaxed dress codes, and flexible leave policies. Does that sound pretty true, Generation X? Now, an interesting thing about Generation X is they consider themselves, in many cases, the forgotten generation. Everybody talks about the boomers and the millennials, but nobody really mentions us, and that's because there's relatively fewer of them. Finally, we have Generation Y. Millennials want a variety of substantial, important projects to allow them to learn and use their new skills, especially their technical skills. They want work that is personally rewarding. Unlike boomers who live to work, Ys work to live. YOLO, Y-O-L-O. What does YOLO stand for? You only live once, so why spend all that time in the shop? And they want a boss who's more like a coach or mentor. They dislike bosses who are formal or hierarchical. Realize that millennials don't drive your father's Oldsmobile. No. Here's what millennials say are the most important things in their life, according to Pew Research. Coming in at number 1, 52% want to be a good parent. Next, 30% want to have a successful marriage. 21% want to help others in need. 20% want to own a home. 15% want to live a very religious life. And then finally, 15% want a high-paying career. What's wrong with you people? What percent of today's adults are currently married with children compared to baby boomers in the same age? What percent of today's adults are currently married with kids compared to baby boomers at the same stage of life? Well, for boomers, about half of us had kids. For millennials, about an eighth. What percent of millennials expect to stay on the job for less than 3 years? Now, I have been out there. It is dangerous. Millennials, do not go. You have it good. But overall, what percent of millennials say, 36 months or so, and then I'm on to greener pastures? What do you think? Toss out a number, especially my analyticals. Even higher, 91%. Yeah, it's going to translate to 15 to 20 jobs, 4 to 5 careers. Maybe some careers that have been thought of yet. I mean, who thought of Facebook 20 years ago, right? All right, you'll get this one. Where do millennials want to live? It ain't the suburbs. Nope. Inner the cities, 41%. In fact, has anyone been to my hometown of Columbus, Ohio? Really? Let me assure you, it's a great place to live. You wouldn't necessarily want to visit there. But if you do come, Right downtown, there's a glitchy little area called Clintonville. My millennial daughter and her husband bought that home there in the upper right. It was built in the 40s. They had a great room, a bedroom on the back. There's the neighborhood. Why did they buy there? So they could walk to Starbucks. I mean, they had their priorities, right? What I'd like you to do is consider 15 effective coaching strategies to use with new hires. Probably millennials, or we'll talk about Generation Z. And this comes from Fortune magazine. Number one, the suggestion is to listen more than you speak. A great coach once told me, you have 2 ears and 1 mouth. Use them in that proportion. Take the time to truly listen to your new hires in order to understand their motivations, goals, and interests. So that leads me to Dr. Stephen Covey and his concept called the Indian talking stick. Has anybody heard of this Indian talking stick? So Roger, if you wouldn't mind sharing, and you have a booming voice, just go ahead and shout it out. What is the Indian talking stick principle?
I understand is you start a topic, whatever it is, and you pass it on to the next person to continue on.
And I'm passing the microphone to you, sir.
I don't want to take more of your time, but I think that is the continuation of a thought as we pass it on through everybody else, and it could take that entire theme or topic, or it could change, and that's the way I understand it anyway.
Yes, and the person with the stick does the talking. Yeah, Dr. Covey said, do we listen to understand? No, we listen to respond. And if you want to impress upon an employee or a customer that you are truly listening, here's how to do it. With your ears, obviously, but also your eyes and your heart. Listen with your ears, your eyes, and your heart, and the other person will believe that you are truly wanting to listen. Before I left, my wife took me into her garden, and she showed me the mums, the phlox, the rhododendron. I don't know, I'm not into gardening. But I am into my relationship with my wife. So I had to force myself to be there, to be present with her, and not be thinking about this presentation. Listen with your ears, your eyes, and especially your heart. All right, the second tip is to tailor your coaching for all learning types. Everyone internalizes information differently. Some are visual learners. Some are auditory, meaning they learn by hearing. And some are kinesthetic, who learn by doing. The key to a successful coaching strategy is to include all of the above in your instruction to ensure you will reach all learners. So, just like we did with the 4 behavioral styles, let's figure out what communication style you are. All right, now fortunately you only have 3 options here, so we're getting it simple. The first is the visual. I think most people are visual learners and visual communicators. Visuals interact with the world by creating mental pictures. They even say things like, I don't see it that way, or it looks good to me. When responding, visual eyes will go up. Why? They want to create a mental picture. They may also blink to clear their screens. Visuals use verbs such as look, see, picture, and imagine. And if you were to present information to a visual employee or customer, use colorful pictures, charts, or displays. So who feels like they're primarily a visual learner, visual communicator? I know the rest of you are thinking, all right, Ted, what are the other 2 options? All right, so let's take a look at it. The second is the auditory. I happen to be auditory. We auditories prefer to discuss and listen to recorded information and music. We say things like, I hear what you're saying, or it doesn't sound that way to me. When responding, auditory's eyes will go off to the side. Why? We'll often repeat out loud or in our mind's ear the question or statement that was just made. We auditories use verbs such as hear, listen, debate, and talk. And when presenting new information to us, take time to discuss it and answer all of our questions. Who's primarily an auditory learner? Okay, my people. And then our final style is the kinesthetic. Kinesthetics are doers. They're demonstrative, and they prefer movement in their interactions. They say things like, I can feel this is the best solution, or I just can't seem to grasp the idea. When responding Kinesthetics' eyes will go down, go down. Why? They want to get in touch with their emotions. And they use action-oriented verbs, such as feel, touch, run, hold, and move. When presenting new information to kinesthetics, use hands-on activities, such as actually going through the motions of a new procedure. Who took a driver's ed class? Okay. I'm sure when you took that class, you didn't just watch a video on how to drive a car. You didn't pile in the automobile and the instructor drove you around town. No, you got behind the wheel. That's how you learned. So if you would please take a moment to discuss with your new table mates now, what is your communication style? Are you primarily a visual communicator and learner, auditory, kinesthetic, or some combination? Well, I hate interrupting you, but I just want to give you some more ammunition. All right? So we're going to continue with ideas on how to help employees who are new hires. And I think you're going to enjoy this. Engage them in the development of the solution. One effective way to help coach employees is to ask the employee on what their ideas are on how to improve or fix a problem. By engaging them in the development of the solution, you will have more buy-in because people never disagree with their own data and see the results that the employee can feel personally responsible for. So with that in mind, we're going to do a SWOT analysis. Has anybody done a SWOT analysis before? You did? In your session? Oh, in Dennis's session? Okay. Well, we'll get to practice it. Did you actually go through one? You did. Okay. So I imagine we have a few experts in here. Okay. All right. And what did you SWOT on? The automatic rebuilding industry? Okay. All right. So those of you who learn, we're going to spread the gospel here with the people at your table. We're going to take a look at strengths, weaknesses, and opportunities and threats. And if you're here from one shop, you may want to do this for your shop. Okay? And as we said, you could take this exercise back to your shop, get all of your employees to contribute. So you notice I like the 4 quadrants: strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. Let me give you an example. Has anybody been to San Francisco? Has anybody rode BART, Bay Area Rapid Transit? Okay? They conducted a SWOT analysis of their operation. Now, across the top, we have strengths and weaknesses. Those are internal factors. Along the bottom, we have opportunities and threats, which are external factors. On the left side, strengths and opportunities, which are positive. On the right side, weaknesses and threats that are negative. So let's take a look at what BART came up with. For strengths, they include BART goes under the sea using a tube, the 5th busiest rail transit system in the U.S. They adapt to new technology, Clipper cards. They have Wi-Fi and cell phone coverage. They've got their own police force. Operators are chipper, and students ride free. For weaknesses, on the right side there, those trains get stuck in the Transbay tube. The 5th busiest rail transit system in the U.S. is both a strength and a weakness. And apparently the seats, I don't know, are they like plastic seats? Kind of like at McDonald's? Okay. All right. Opportunities. There's new opportunities for new train cars, new seats, and completing the line to San Jose. And it's that last box that's most important. The threats. Threats to BART are the BART train cars are very expensive to maintain. Funding is hard to secure from taxpayers, employee strikes, and miscellaneous protests. But I think BART has ignored the number one threat to their organization. What do you think that is? Number one threat. Let me give you a hint. It's the largest transportation company in the world, and they don't own a single vehicle. Uber. Did you know the average millennial spends an average of $110 a month in Uber fares in San Francisco? This is the box you have to pay attention to. Who remembers Blockbuster? Did you know at their height they had over 9,000 stores? How many do they have today? 1, and where is it? Bend, Oregon. Do you know what happened? Pardon me? It's also an Airbnb? Wow. Do you know what happened? Who remembers going to Blockbuster on a Friday night trying to get the latest copy of the latest release? Okay. Do you know what happened to Blockbuster? Legend goes. They didn't adjust to the times. And the legend goes that they had a single customer who was upset because he had a late fee on his copy of Apollo 13. So he said, I'll fix them. And what did he do? He started Netflix. Or how about BlackBerry? Crackberry. Who remember those phones? Okay. Of course, the iPhone came out and BlackBerry ignored them. Why? That's just a consumer toy. But then BYOD happened. What's BYOD? Bring your own device to work. And what do people bring? Their iPhones. And where is BlackBerry today? Or who invented the digital camera? Kodak. I heard a story about a Kodak manager, marketing manager, held up one of those cameras and said, digital photography, don't worry about it. People have been trading print photographs for 100 years. They'll do so for the next 100 years. And this is from the developer of the digital camera. So we don't want to end up like BlackBerry or Blockbuster or Kodak. So what I'd like you to do, whomever has the best printing at your table, if you could grab one of the markers there, there's a marker at your table, and one of the cling sheets, just kind of make some room there, okay? And we're going to continue with Dennis's exercise for the people who weren't here yesterday, because I think this is so important for our industry. Please come, or if it's just people from your shop, all right, come up with the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and especially threats. Please identify those. So yes, take the marker and the cling sheet, make some room there on the table. Go. All right, so obviously you had some experience doing this yesterday, more experience today. Take this back, have your employees fill out a SWOT, and that way they can feel like they're intrapreneurs. Obviously you are the entrepreneurs, but they can feel like they are part of the operation and take on more ownership. So our sixth tip in dealing with new hires is to praise in public, correct in private. I have found the best advice to be praise in public and correct in private. Quick, brief feedback, in-the-moment feedback is the way to reinforce or correct behavior with coaching. So that's what we want to do, but we don't necessarily follow through with it. So because she did such a great job before, I'm going to pick on Mary Ann here. And I'm going to assume that Mary Ann works for me. It'd more likely be the other way around, okay? But Mary Ann is working for me, and she brings me a report. And I say to Mary Ann, nice report. What's likely the next word out of my mouth? But you screwed this up, this up, this up, this up. Now go fix it and bring it back. We tend to be very general in our praise and very specific as to what people did wrong. Now, what I'm trying to do is to encourage Mary Ann, but chances are she's going to be walking out of my office with her tail dragging between her legs. Brian Tracy said it is better to take a sledgehammer to defective office equipment than it is to engage in the destructive criticism of a human being. It is better to take a sledgehammer to defective office equipment than to engage in destructive criticism, because we're paying the employee, but we're not getting our full benefit. Here's what you should do instead. Be very specific as to what Mary Ann did right. Mary Ann, nice report. I like the way you got it in on time. I like the way you formatted it. There was some original thought there. And, get rid of your big butt. And, Mary Ann, here's some things you could do next time to make it even better. Because I want Mary Ann strutting out of my office going, dang, I'm good, and I'm going to be excellent. Make sure you get the results that you're looking for in the language that you use. We mentioned earlier emotional intelligence, and I couldn't be from Columbus, Ohio, without putting up a picture of this guy. Who is that man? Urban Meyer. After his 2014 Ohio State Buckeyes won the national championship, a reporter went to Coach Meyer and said, Coach, how'd you do it? And he didn't talk about some offensive play or defensive scheme or special teams arrangement. He simply said E plus R equals O. Huh? What the heck does that have to do with football? Meyer said, no. Unsuccessful teams, unsuccessful people think that E equals O. The event equals the outcome. Somebody cuts them off in traffic, they get mad. They even know why, they're just supposed to. He said successful teams, successful people understand there is a third component. The R, your reaction to that outcome, is going to make all the difference. Now, as you probably can tell, I am so excited to be finally here. This is such a wonderful opportunity, and I thank Roger and Dennis for having me, because a few weeks ago, I was on a virtual presentation, and I didn't have a group like you. The only reaction I was getting during that entire program was from the dogs downstairs. My wife forgot to cage them before she left. So I'm sitting there talking to myself, and the dogs are down there yapping and barking. I'm getting more and more and more upset, and I'm thinking, when my wife gets home, I'm going to let her have it. But then I thought to myself, but Ted, what outcome are you looking for? I'm trying to maintain harmonious relations with my wife. Well, guess what? That reaction ain't going to cut it. So my wife came home and I said, hon, while you were gone, the dogs were barking downstairs and I was trying to deliver that webinar. She said, oh, I'm sorry. It'll never happen again. Fine. Now, we have very little control over the events in our life, right? I heard that the average person is going to experience 20,000 disappointments over their lifetime. Anywhere from stepping in dog poop to having your spouse die. Very little control. We have total control over the R, our reaction to those events. And therefore, that's going to impact the outcome. The event plus your reaction to that event will determine the outcome. E plus R equals O. Thanks, Coach. Anybody familiar with this coach? Vince Lombardi. You knew that, Marianne. Yeah, he was the coach of which team? A little bit of trivia here. And who else? Yeah, who else? Maybe you don't, nobody realizes this. Actually, it's now called the Washington Football Club. Okay? Yeah, for a year, I think, or so. But primarily for the Packers. So what Vince Lombardi said was that nothing is more unequal than the equal treatment of unequals. Huh? There's some coach speak for you. What does that mean? Nothing is more unequal than the equal treatment of equals. Well, what that's saying is that all of your employees are equal, but you can't treat them the same way, right? In fact, here's a question for you. Can you motivate another person? Who says yes? Who says no? Well, motivation is actually an inner drive, impulse or intention that causes a person to act in a certain way to achieve a certain goal. Nothing you can do will motivate anybody to do anything. Motivation must come from within. Now, I'm sure back at your shops, you're lucky to have people who are already motivated, right? So you can motivate them if they have that internal drive. But you may say to me, Ted, I can motivate my kids to clean their room. I would suggest you are bribing them. Okay? The real question is, if you weren't there, would they clean their rooms? If so, they are truly motivated. A person is either motivated or not. However, you can affect what a person who is motivated on your team might be motivated to do. So, where you can see motivation in your employees, get them talking about playing softball, or especially their kids or their grandkids. All right? I could talk for the next 7 hours about my 8 grandkids. All right? Because very few people are unmotivated outside of work. People are either motivated by money. You talked about that, how tough it is right now because you're competing with other industries for money. Marble. What's marble? Trophies, plaques, or chalk, maybe getting written up in the association newsletter. If the work doesn't contain its own reinforcement, then you as a leader should try to attach an appropriate reward to the work. Well, maybe I can do that this evening. Automatic rewards, such as annual step increases in pay, do nothing to reinforce particular actions. So you do something great in February, you get a raise next January? I don't think so. Nope. Reinforcement must be immediate. Could you imagine going to a vending machine, putting your money in, and getting a display that says, "Thank you for your purchase. I'll be dispensing your product in 6 months." It doesn't work. reinforcement must be immediate. The longer you delay the reward, separating it from the action being rewarded, the less effective it will be as a way to reinforce motivation. To be effective, a reward should be linked to a specific performance, because that which gets recognized and rewarded will get repeated. That which gets recognized and rewarded will get repeated, timely, and frequent. Reward blank on a blank basis. Reward regularly, but do it on an irregular basis. In other words, surprise your employees. And then celebrate effort, not just outcome. As a leader, you tell your people that seeking to do the job well and learning from the experience is important to you, because we have to be bad at something before we can be good. Wayne Gretzky said, I missed 100% of the shots I didn't take. So there's three kinds of rewards you can give your employees. First of all, tangible rewards. Did you know that Ben & Jerry's ice cream in Vermont, each of the employees there can get up to 3 pints of ice cream for free each day? I can't imagine anybody who works there weighs less than 200 pounds. And at Anheuser-Busch, Pete's Wicked Ale, and Robert Mondavi Winery, employees can get cases of products for free each quarter. At Eli Lilly in Indianapolis, their health plan covers 100% of every pharmaceutical Eli Lilly makes, including Prozac. But here's some better tangible rewards. At Rubbermaid, they award employees rubber bucks for a job well done, redeemable for goods at a company store. And at Benjamin Moore, they allow their employees to buy paint at wholesale prices, and they'll send crews out to 2 employees each year to paint their houses for free. But for most employees, the best reward you can give them is a tangible gift with public praise. Tangible gift with public praise. You know, like a $50 Amazon gift card with public praise. But the better you know the worker, the more likely it is you'll be able to reward that worker effectively. So we're going to do a little quiz. If you would please stand up. Don't have to come to the front of the room, but just stand up. Okay? We're going to do a little exercise that I call Fact or Smack. I'm going to read a statement. If you believe it to be true, please shout out fact. If you think it's false, smack. Okay? So here we go. Fact or smack. Nothing is more unequal than the equal treatment of unequals, said Miley Cyrus. Fact, yeah, oh, good job, class. Well, the statement is true. It's attributed to Coach Vince Lombardi. Fact or smack. The number one complaint of employees is about wages and benefits. Whoa! We didn't talk about this. Oh, this is the smart group. Okay. You may notice in front of you, I have a postcard. Okay? In my last corporate position, I had a coworker by the name of Amy, who always did a great job. But one time, Amy just went over and above what she needed to do. And I want to recognize this in Amy, but times are tough. I couldn't give her a raise or promotion. What I did was I went to the Hallmark store and I made up this little postcard that, as you see, says at the top 10 reasons why you're marvelous. And I filled it in. Now, she was a good friend, a valuable coworker. I probably could have listed 20 things. But then I thought to myself, what's Amy going to think of this? She's going to think this is weird or corny. Is she going to report me to HR? I mean, you've got to be concerned about these things, right? But I took a chance. Well, Amy looked at the card, she looked at me. She looked at the card, she looked at me. When she looked up the second time, there were tears streaming down Amy's face. Apparently, nobody ever shown appreciation like this for Amy. But the way I knew it made an impact was we're in the computer industry. We move around a lot. The very first thing Amy would do when she moved to a new cubicle was to take my postcard and stick it up on the wall. She said, if I was having a tough day, if I didn't feel like a valuable coworker or a decent human being, all I'd have to do is look at your postcard. I swear, ladies and gentlemen, if you go to Amy's Cube today, you'll see this postcard. And what did it cost me? Well, the first one cost me $1.59, but it worked so well, I wanted to give you copies. So feel free to take these back. Make somebody's day. If you need more copies, I got them. Because the number one complaint of employees Is it about wages and benefits? Fact or smack? That's correct. The number one complaint of employees is a lack of appreciation. You don't want to be like the guy who'd been married for a while. And his wife came to him and said, you know, when we were dating, you really treated me special. You take me out to dinner, you buy me flowers, you buy me candy. Now, nothing. I don't even know if you still love me. And the guy, being a guy, thought to himself for a second, then he responded, well, consider yourself loved until you hear otherwise. And you think it's funny, but that's how employees feel. I mean, when do we normally hear from the boss? When we screw something up. Otherwise, we get ignored. Yeah, the number one complaint among employees when you take worker satisfaction surveys over the last 75 years is a lack of appreciation. Fact or smack, you can motivate another person. Very good, class. Motivation has to be an internal drive. However, you can influence what a motivated person on your team might do. Fact or smack, rewarding with a tangible gift and public praise is usually the best kind of reward you can give an employee. Fact or smack. Excellent. Excellent. Yes, remember to reward regularly, but do it on a regular basis. Okay, great job. Sit back down. Sit back down. Okay. Our seventh tip in dealing with new hires is to set SMART goals. The best way to set up new hires for success is to create clear goals that define success from day one. An easy way to do this is by creating SMART goals. Who has heard of SMART goals? Okay, it's important that we make our goals specific, measurable, action-oriented, realistic, and time-specific. So let's say I set as a goal I wanted to be a better father. Does that fit the SMART criteria? Who says yes? Who says no? But it's a good goal, right? Give me a practical way I could make it a SMART goal. Anybody want to give me a way that I could work into being a better father by creating a SMART goal?
Yeah, just make a punch list of things you can actually do to be a better father, to make it more specific.
Okay, like maybe take my daughter to soccer practice twice a week. Yeah, make it specific, measurable, action-oriented, realistic, hopefully, and time-specific. A couple other things about goals. We have to see ourselves as already accomplishing them, and we have to state it in a positive tense. We have to see it as already being accomplished, and we have to state it in a positive tense. Because the mind cannot dwell on the opposite of an idea. That's why you can't become rich if you're thinking about your bills all the time. You can't lose weight if you think you're fat. You can't stop smoking, if that's your goal, if you think of yourself as a smoker. The mind cannot dwell on the opposite of an idea. For instance, don't think of a pink elephant. What do you think about? A pink elephant. Yeah, the mind can't do it. Once these goals are defined, make sure you consistently check in on progress and course correct with the employee if needed. Specific, measurable, action-oriented, realistic, and time-specific. You know, I had the opportunity to drive from my home in Columbus, Ohio, down to Kentucky to deliver this class. And along the way, I passed a billboard that said this. What do you think happens when you think about bankruptcy all day? You go bankrupt. The mind cannot dwell on the opposite of an idea. But let's get off the negative, all right? Let's talk about somebody who was excellent when it came to SMART goals. Michael Jordan. Did you know over his NBA career, he averaged more than 30 points a game? He set a SMART goal for himself of 30 points a game. And somebody asked him once, well, Michael, how'd you do it? And Jordan said, well, I simplified a few years ago. 32 points a game, just 8 points a quarter. Figure I can get 8 points a quarter in some kind of way during the course of a game. But you may say to me, but Ted, I am not Michael Jordan, all right? You don't know the trouble I've seen. And that's true. But let's take a look at what Jordan had to overcome to hit his SMART goal of 30 points a game. Realize that he missed over 9,000 shots. He lost almost 300 games. 26 times his teammates gave him the ball to hit that last second winning shot, and he missed. But that didn't keep him from focusing on and accomplishing his SMART goal of 30 points a game. As a matter of fact, Jordan said, I've missed more than 9,000 shots in my career. I've lost almost 300 games. 26 times I've been trusted to take the game-winning shot, and I've missed. I've failed over and over and over again in my life, and that's why I succeed. Do we have any NASCAR fans in the room? Very good. You know, the nice thing about driving down to Kentucky is people actually admit it. Okay? The number 48 car. Who drove the number 48 car? Jimmy Johnson. Of course, you know he was a 7-time champion, which I think is pretty incredible because every time he went on the track, he was facing at least 40 other drivers, right? Somebody asked him how he did it. And Johnson said, well, I don't watch TV. I don't watch reading the trade papers or magazines. I just ignore, and focus on my world and what's going on with my race car. That's what I'll do through the rest of the chase. Johnson went on to say, I've run a lot of laps at Phoenix International Raceway. There's Phoenix International there in the background. In my mind, some of those preparation things will never change. They're just the way I'm wired and the way I feel good about preparing for each race. See, you dig through your notes and start running laps mentally. So when you show up at the track, you'll remember. And he finished by saying, sometimes I'll visualize where a problem area will be in my mind. And if I don't make the corner as clean as I want, I'll start over again at the start-finish line until I can work my way around and complete a clean lap. Visualization. Who uses it? It works. All right, these two guys, Jack Canfield and Mark Victor Hansen, they set a tremendously ambitious goal of 1.5 million copies of their book in a year and a half. Now, there's a chicken soup for every soul, is there not? There's even a chicken soup for the NASCAR soul. I know. I got it as a gift twice. But does anybody know the story behind the chicken soup series? These two guys took the idea to 144 different publishers. The first 143 said, get out of here. Nobody's going to read a book of silly short stories. What are you thinking? In fact, they reached $100,000 in debt trying to promote the idea. And one of their wives said, I think it's time for you boys to get a real job. But here's what they did. They wrote the goal on an index card, and they reviewed it a minimum of 4 times a day. Did they hit their goal? Well, they came awfully close. They had 1.3 million copies in the first 18 months. And I didn't know if that would work until I came across this article entitled 7 Unconventional Strategies for Profitable Growth. You can use unconventional strategies for growing your business. I don't. My approach is unconventional, and I hope the unconventional approaches below stimulate a creative idea or two for growing your business. The first suggestion is to hallucinate. Yes, hallucinate. In 1996, I attended a national healthcare meeting where Scott Adams, the creator of Dilbert, was the opening keynote speaker. As I sat there with 15,000 other people, I heard him say he became a nationally syndicated cartoonist by writing, Scott Adams is a nationally syndicated cartoonist, 15 times a day. Just like it was a reality. I thought, how absurd, he's hallucinating. 8 months later, I decided to prove Scott Adams and his stupid, crazy idea wrong. At the time, I was a nurse working in a hospital, but I had my dream, and I knew the sentences I would write. Kathy Dempsey, there's Kathy, is a national speaker. Kathy Dempsey is an author. Well, in less than 2 years, both of those statements came true. What happened? I programmed my unconscious. It didn't know reality from fiction. If you can visualize it, it can happen for you. But who struggles with goals? Seriously, who struggles with goals, smart or otherwise? Yeah, I was having this conversation with my daughters coming home from church the other day, and they said, Dad, we don't even know what you want. Okay, so what we're going to do is a little exercise. We're going to start with values. So if you would please, again, you could use your notebook or the stationery from the hotel. At the top of a piece of paper, could you please write down the names of 3 people you admire, 3 people you find admirable? Now, don't everybody put down Roger because he gets embarrassed when that happens. But if you have to, you have to. All right? 3 people you admire. It could be somebody from your family. Could be somebody from history. It could be a fictitious person. It does not matter. But 3 people that you find admirable. If you could please put that at the top of a piece of paper. Okay, well, even one's fine. For that one person or the three persons, if you could please, underneath, think of 5 attributes that you admire in that person or each of the 3 people. What do you like about them? What makes them stand out? What are some of their good qualities? What makes them special? And if you have more than one person, these may overlap. That's okay. But what do you admire about each of these people? Now, there is so much negativity in the media these days, is there not? So why don't we buck the trend? I think it's kind of interesting to find out who people admire. So if you would, please, with the people at your table, pick somebody on your list and tell them why you find them so admirable. All right, so just take a few moments to share who's on your list. I think you're going to find this exercise rather interesting. Go. Did anybody hear somebody interesting at your table from one of your table mates? Anybody have somebody unusual? Okay, all right. If you don't mind, I'm going to go back here. And now, was it somebody you had that was interesting, or you have somebody interesting? Okay. Well, actually, that was going to be my point here. So, who did you have on the list, sir?
Michael Jordan.
Michael Jordan, who we just talked about. Now, why do you admire Michael Jordan? I mean, obviously, there's many reasons, but yours in particular.
Yeah, so far, goals, determination, strength, and how he controls his fame.
Okay, so goals, determination, and strength. And your name, sir? Jonathan. Does anybody know Jonathan back there? Anybody know Jonathan? Anybody know Jonathan? No? No? Okay. I would submit to you that if you knew Jonathan, he just described himself. So take a look at the people you admire and what their strengths are, because we tend to like and trust people whom we perceive to be like ourselves, and we dislike and we distrust people whom we've perceived to be different. So if you're struggling with goals, just take a look at those people you admire and do what they do. In fact, you could even use this on a job interview. So because I picked on Mary Ann earlier, I'm going to pick on you again. So let's say I'm interviewing with Mary Ann. Mary Ann, how long have you been with the shop?
22 years.
22 years. So what I could do is I could ask Mary Ann, to what do you attribute your success? Okay, and what are some of the factors? Why have you had this longevity?
I think focusing on the team.
Focusing on the team.
Yeah, then focusing on the customers.
Focusing on the customers.
And then focusing on the business.
And focusing on the business. So in my answer, all I have to do is to show Mary Ann how I'm exactly like her, and I'm likely to get the job. Because we tend to like and trust people whom we perceive to be like ourselves, and we dislike and we distrust people whom we perceive to be different. All right, here's our 8th tip when it comes to new hires. Opt for informal coaching sessions. One of the best coaching strategies leaders can use with new and or young hires is to present the coaching session in an informal manner, especially if you're dealing with millennials. Present ideas in a very relaxed atmosphere where feedback can be given and their skills can be sharpened. Ken Blanchard said that people who feel good about themselves produce good results. Wouldn't you agree? This is a rather unusual quote. The number one job of you as management is to appreciate your employees. That's the number one job you have. Appreciation of employees. This is an unusual picture, but the sentence at the bottom changed my life. We like others based upon how much we find out they like us. We like others based upon how much we find out they like us. I was with a bunch of other speakers, and one of the speakers said, you know, we really love Ted. I thought, wait a minute. You love me? Really? So I reached out to her, and we've become good friends because I figured after she said that, she wasn't going to reject me, right? We like others based upon how much we find out they like us. So make sure your employees and your customers understand that you like them. This led Ken Blanchard to come up with a process he calls 1 minute praising. 1 minute praising. Let's go through the steps. First of all, tell people up front that you're going to let them know how they're doing. Set the expectation. Next, praise people immediately. Catch people doing things right. When do they typically hear from the boss? When they've messed something up or they're in trouble. Tell people what they did right and be specific, because that which gets recognized and rewarded will get repeated. Tell people how good you feel. Where are my amiables? Feelings, nothing more than feelings. Where are my associators? Especially if once they take the test, you've determined that your employees are amiables or associators. Tell them how good you feel about what they did right, and tell them specifically how it helps the organization. Stephen Covey says it's the front line that produces the bottom line, but in many cases they don't understand how they fit into the big picture. And then encourage them to do more of the same. How long does this process take? About a minute, but it'll make somebody's day. All right, I don't think this made this into your workbook because after I submitted this, like I said, the information I kind of submitted in a COVID environment where I didn't know we'd be able to get together this closely. And I continued to do research, and I'd like to share this with you. Who is the boss of the year in your organization? The boss, who would like to be the boss of the year? I'm going to give you the surefire formula so that you can be boss of the year if you're not already the boss of the year. All right? So here are the 7 questions to hit your employees' hot buttons. Ask each of your employees these 7 questions. And then if you listen, truly listen, with your ears, your eyes, and your heart, you too can be boss of the year. And feel free to, I noticed you brought out your smartphone to take a picture. Feel free to do so. All right? The first question to ask each employee, what do you like most about your job? What do you like most about your job? See, where we can't necessarily give raises or promotions or to meet the expectations of salary in other industries, you give people more of what they like to do, they'll see that as a reward, and chances are that's what they're good at. What do you think question number 2 is? What do you like least about your job? See if you can take that away. I was the only fool in my department like do public speaking, but once I started doing that, other people did my dirty work. Question number 3, what would you like to do in the future? See, the danger of being a manager of a well-oiled machine is you just want to keep it going. But maybe Darla's been doing her job for 8 years. You could say to Darla, you cooperate with me, I can help make your dreams a reality. But you got to find out what Darla's dreams are, first of all. Number 4, what would you most like to learn? Hey, bring them to a trade show. Right, Roger? There we go. Yeah. Where are we in 2022? We're at Caesars next year. I'm sure they'd love to come to Caesars. Yeah. Number 5, when do you feel you do your best work? Who's morning people? Please, somebody raise your hand. Thank goodness, all right? Who's afternoon people? Who's night people? It's not necessarily when you do it, it's if you do it. And we found out through this particular situation with the pandemic, if you give people flexibility around the rest of their lives, you can get unprecedented loyalty. Number 6, who do you like working with the most? We find that the green team, the analyticals, love to work with other analyticals. They don't like working with the purple team, the associators. Oh, they're always out entertaining clients. Of course, the associators say about us analyticals, they're so anal retentive and nitpicky. Ooh. Put people together so you get synergy. And finally, question number 7. This will blow you away. The response to this question will blow you away. What's most important to you in a job? I think you had Mark Sanborn as a speaker here. Anybody remember seeing Mark Sanborn? Okay. All right. Now, I get some pushback on this. I have some managers tell me, but Ted, what if I don't have all the right comebacks? But you know what they usually say after they go through this process? They say that their employees say, wait a minute. You want to get to know me as a person? You know, most people only think of me as a cog in the machine. You know, I'm just the mechanic. All right? But you want to get to know me as a person? Wow. Nobody's ever taken that opportunity before. So don't think of your employees as mere economic units. Get to know their feelings, their wants, their desires. Treat them as a real person, and you'll be amazed at the difference. And these 7 questions will help you. You have a question on the questions. Yes, Marianne?
On number 6, who do you like working with the most? right now on question 6, are you asking to look for like the personality or for a name of a person?
You could do both. You could do both because you may not know that Darla likes working with Roger, you know. And if it's possible to team them up, then go ahead and do that, you know, if it is possible. But why not find that out? Mm-hmm. Yeah. As a matter of fact, when we wrap up, one of the questions we're going to ask to see if you are truly engaged in your job, one of the 12 questions is, do you have a best friend at work? So if they have a best friend at work and you can trust them to work together, go ahead and do that. If it's an enjoyable experience, they're not going to want to leave. Okay. Oh, this is my favorite part of the day. All right? The importance of, I'm so excited. I'm sorry. I'm so excited. Okay? We're going to do a little exercise that stresses the importance of effective communications. So we're going to do this by table. All right? I am going to need a volunteer from each table to come up to my table here and pick 5 random Lego pieces. Any 5 will do. So if you could please send a runner, a representative from your table to come up here. And by the way, if you take the pieces back and everybody at the table goes, oh, why did you choose those? You can exchange them. All right? But just please pick 5 pieces, 5 Lego pieces from the table up here. I'll get out of the way and avoid the stampede. Now, I am going to need a scribe for this exercise. So once again, if somebody would like to volunteer to be a scribe and just take notes either on the hotel stationery or in the paper in your folder there. So we do need a scribe at each table. Okay, so once you bring those pieces back, with the help of your team, please create a structure. So put all 5 pieces together, however you see best. Go ahead and develop a structure using the 5 pieces. Okay, once you have your structure together. No, my bad. Scribe, please write down the instructions on how to rebuild the structure, but words only. No illustrations, no diagrams, just words. How would you rebuild this structure? Please write the instructions on a piece of paper. If you have completed writing the instructions, please bust up the structure after you take a photograph. Take a picture of the structure. Somebody with a smartphone, go ahead and snap a picture. And then break it up. Once you have photographic evidence, go ahead and take it apart. Okay, step 6. If you could please take the 5 Lego pieces, the dismantled 5 Lego pieces, and the sheet of paper with the instructions to the next team. So if you could please just pass it behind you, and if the team in the back, if you could have a runner bring it to the front table here. Otherwise, just pass the instructions and the 5 dismantled pieces to the table behind you. And then rebuild the structure only using those written instructions. All right? Your new assignment, should you decide to accept it, is to rebuild the structure using only the instructions. See if you can rebuild the 5 Lego piece structure. After you have rebuilt the structure, turn to the table in front of you, in most cases, or the table behind or the table in the back. Bring them the photograph and show them what the structure should have looked like. Did they build it properly? Let them know. Give them some feedback. Whomever took the picture with a smartphone, show the other team what the structure actually should resemble. So who nailed it? Which team's got it right? All right, right here. Okay, we got our first winner. Anybody else rebuild? Back there, you did it right? Oh, and you did too? Wow. So anytime you do an exercise, we need a debrief. What did we learn from this exercise? Who would like to share? The instructions were not very good. You're going to blame it on the other team. Okay. Yes. Yes, the administrator said when you are communicating, you need to be very specific. You know why? Because it's likely you have the curse of knowledge. What is the curse of knowledge? Wait, this is so good. Go ahead, Bill.
You already done it, you know how to do it, and you expect them to be able to do it after you.
Excellent. Let's give it up for Bill. Yeah. And how does this apply in your shops? Well, you know so much about transmission. You're trying to impress the customer. You see his or her eyes glaze over, and they say to you what? I'm just going to go someplace else. Okay? You thought that by vomiting everything you know that you would get their business. But instead you made them feel stupid. So they're going to go someplace else where they feel more competent. You need to hold back because we have this curse of knowledge. We assume that what we know, everybody else knows, or we can talk technical, we can talk jargon, and they'll understand. And I think this exercise proved that point, don't you? Okay, so let's start talking. We've been talking about the employees so far. Let's talk about your customer. Why is customer service so important? This is John Wanamaker. He was a department store magnate in Philadelphia at the turn of the century. And he said, 50% of my advertising dollars are wasted. I don't know which 50%. Who can relate to his lament? Okay? But there is a form of marketing that works 100% of the time. What is it? Word of mouth. Never fails. In fact, now, you're subject to reviews and Twitter and Facebook. It's better known as world of marketing now. And here's why. People are 6 times more likely to rely on the judgment of others when making a buying decision. As a matter of fact, 80% of consumer choices are the result of personal recommendation. I found this out recently when I took my 7'2" son to Home Depot. We had to buy a new weed whacker. So we walk in, and there's a collection of 12 on the shelf, and Dad is clueless as always. My son goes off with his iPhone. He punches a few buttons. He comes back, and he says, Dad, that's the one we want. It got 4.8 stars. My son would rather listen to people he doesn't even know than pay attention to advertising. The average person has a direct sphere of influence of 52 people. Now, if you doubt that, just imagine your email address list or the number of friends you have on Facebook. I bet it's more than 52. In addition, if you're an average American adult, you know 400 people. People you work with, people you went to school with, people you know socially. If you assume each of those 400 know 400, of course there'd be some overlap, but just to keep it simple, you now have an immediate network of 160,000 people. And if you assume each of those 160,000 people know 400 others, you're up to 1/3 of the U.S. adult population. And what are people more likely to spread about your shop? Good news or bad news? Yes. Your average satisfied client will tell 5 to 8 others. Your average upset customer will tell 10 to 16. In fact, 1 in 5 will tell 20 people how upset you have made them. And then especially, as you now know, with reviews and social media, it's hard to stay in front of the curve. I heard it's the first weekend that makes or breaks a motion picture. Why? People go to the theater and they're texting or tweeting their friends right from the theater to tell them how good or bad the film is. See, if the service fails, your customer wails, expressing pain to others. But if your service soars, your customer roars, loudly and proudly. Let's see why businesses lose customers. Not your shops, all right? Because every time I give this presentation, I'm always preaching to the choir here. You know, the people who really need to be here aren't, right? Wouldn't you agree? But about 1% of the time, the reason why businesses lose customers is because their customers die. Although one attendee told me she worked at a nursing home, her figures were a little different. 3% of the time, it's because they move away. Again, not really under our control. 5% of the time, it's because a friend or relative told them to go to a different shop. Or, of course, why aren't they getting their friends and relatives to come to us? 9% of the time, it's because a competitor convinced them that they had a better service. But maybe we haven't educated our customer as to all the offerings that we have. 14% of the time, it's because we tick them off, so they leave. The surprising thing is how many businesses give up without a fight, because they don't realize it's 5 times more expensive to get a new customer than to keep an existing one satisfied. But in the majority of cases, 68% of the time, why do you think businesses lose their customers? And we already talked about this when we talked about employees. What's the number one complaint of employees? Lack of appreciation. The number one complaint of customers? Lack of appreciation. In fact, you've probably experienced this. You walk into a dry cleaner, and they don't even look up. They simply say, last name. You come in next week. Last name. Come in the week after that. Last name. We all want to go to a place like Cheers. Who remembers the sitcom Cheers? How did the theme song go? Where everybody knows your name. Do you appreciate your customer? Hopefully, like you appreciate your employees. All right, so let's say, all right, we're going to talk about one of these businesses that's losing all their customers. And the solution will be to hire a new salesperson. That's what we need, a new salesperson. So let's say that business were to hire a new salesperson and pay her $50,000 in salary, okay? There's probably another $50,000 wrapped up in overhead like fringe benefits, health care, administrative assistant help, office space, technology. Let's say what she's selling has a 10% margin, a 10% markup. All right, who's good at math? Who are my analytical friends here? How much does she have to sell just to pay for herself? $50,000 salary, $50,000 overhead, 10% margin. Yes, thank you, Bill. $1 million. So after 12 months, she brings in $500,000 worth of new business, and we're having a party? No! We should fire her because she's costing us more than she's worth. Hiring a salesperson is expensive. That's why it's far better to have your customers out there doing it for you for free. When it comes to customer service, according to surveys, who provides the worst customer service? What industry? Shout it out. Cable? Airlines? You pretty much nailed it. The internet service providers, the cable companies, and yes, the airlines. And the reason I mention this is because I happen to be on a flight, an American Airlines flight, 4105 from Columbus, Ohio to Chicago. Nothing really spectacular about this regional jet, except for the flight attendant. This is Rebecca. As Rebecca was coming down the aisle with a cart, she was saying things like this. Well, Ron, what could I get you to drink? Darla, what would be your drink of choice? How about you, Marianne? What would you like? When she came to me and she said, Ted, what can I get you? I said, wait a minute. I've been on over 1,000 flights. Nobody has ever identified me by name. Dale Carnegie said, a person's name is to that person the sweetest sound in any language. How are you doing this? She said, well, I got the passenger manifest here. I know who's on my plane. I can't believe that every flight attendant doesn't do this. I said, trust me, they don't. I was so impressed by this that I wrote an article that got published. One of Rebecca's coworkers saw it, sent it to the president of American Airlines. He invited Rebecca into his office. They had lunch together. They named her Employee of the Quarter. They even named a plane after Rebecca. And after all that, she said, I continue to receive lots of positive letters from our passengers that rave about my use of their name when addressing them and my attitude. It's what keeps me going. Thank you for being an uplifting part of my life, like I did something. You really made my day when I had you on my flight. I love my job. I could tell. Okay. Well, American Airlines is not one of my favorites. In normal times, I would choose Southwest. Okay? In normal times. Timing is everything. Yes. So let's take a look at the South, except for last year. Of course, last year was so bizarre. They were the only airline to make an annual profit for the last 50 years. The only airline that could claim that, except for last year. So I want to take a look at what some of their philosophy is. They say that their employees are their first customers. By the way, anytime Southwest uses the word customers, it's always with a capital C. They go on to say if your employees aren't happy, how can you expect them to provide great customer service? Good question. We hire for attitude, they say, and train for skill. They hire for attitude and train for skill. And the former president said, we're in the customer service business. We just happen to fly airplanes. You're really in the customer service business. You just happen to fix transmissions. That's the way the customer looks at it. But realize that customers don't buy products or services. No, they buy what they get from the product or service. For instance, people don't buy shampoo. They buy clean hair. They don't buy saws. They buy cuts. The problem is Lowe's doesn't sell cuts, so they have to buy saws. They don't even buy chlorine. They buy clean pools. Charles Revson said, yes, in the factory we make cosmetics, but in the drugstore we sell hope. Realize that Nike doesn't sell athletic wear. What does Nike really sell? And what particularly special about the brand? They sell winning. In fact, I heard that Nike doesn't even make their own products anymore. They have subcontractors who do, so if fashions change, they can change on a dime. So the only real asset that Nike owns is what? The swoosh. Understand that De Beers doesn't sell diamonds. What does De Beers sell? Forever. Forever. Although I heard about one Hollywood actor, he said, I'm not up for marriage. I'm not ready for a one-year commitment. Mm-hmm. So with that in mind, realizing that your customers aren't really buying your products and services, what are they really buying from you? So please take a moment to discuss that at your tables. They're not really buying a rebuilt transmission, right? What are they really attempting to get from you? Take a moment to discuss that with the people at your table. I'm sorry, Daniel, I was eavesdropping here, and you had some real words of wisdom. So if I could just interrupt your conversation for a moment, and I'd ask Daniel to share his insights that he was just discussing with your table. So what are people really buying when they come to your shop, Daniel?
Reliable transportation in a timely manner.
It has nothing to do with the transmission, right?
Correct. They could care less about their transmission.
Right. It's just a black box under the hood, right? Mm-hmm. Okay. Excellent. So let's also consider this other concept. Your unique problem-solving proposition. What is this? It's a statement that explains why customers would choose you over any other shop in the city. Says exactly what sets you apart from your competitors. Tells your potential customers what to expect from you. Often addresses a problem or need that the customers have. It's often the chief benefit of the business, product, or service you're offering. Or it could be the theme of your business, product, or service. For instance, which coffee is mountain grown? Well, aren't they all mountain grown? But that's okay. That's Folger's unique problem-solving proposition. You'll get this one. Which beer is brewed with the cold, clear water of the Rockies? Did you know that Coors tried to sell bottled water and they failed? But that's okay. It could be based upon just about anything. Price, positioning, location, hours of operation, customer service, or celebrity endorsement. You've heard of the George Foreman grill, right? But you must have a unique problem-solving proposition. And it cannot be, we're no worse than anyone else. Had one attendee tell me, well, Ted, we're a distributor just like everybody else in town. I said, therein lies your problem. Here's what you need to ask yourself. Why should anyone choose my product, service, my business, my shop, over any and every other option available to them? Why should anyone choose my product, service, or business over any and every other option available to them? See, unless a business has a unique advantage over its rivals, it has no reason to exist and may not for much longer. Who remembers Sears? Remember, Sears was where America shopped, right? But then we have competitors like Amazon where you can get anything you want, and Sears no longer has a unique problem-solving proposition. I don't know about in your town, but they've disappeared from Columbus for 5 years. Unless a business has unique advantage over its rivals, it has no reason to exist. So why should I do business with your shop? So take a moment to discuss at your table, What is your unique problem-solving proposition? Go. You have it right. Okay, I'm sorry. That's so good you're going to have to interrupt everybody. So, posted on the wall of your shop, it has their unique problem-solving proposition. And the top 5 reasons customers choose us in very bold print. The number 1 answer, trust. I think it all gets down to trust. My wife and I have been married for 38 years now, and I know that my wife has never done anything intentional to hurt me. I mean, I don't understand what she does, I don't necessarily agree what she does, but I know she always has my best interest at heart. So we have a whole different relationship than if I couldn't trust her. So that's number 1 for a very good reason. Secondly, location, much smaller. Quality, smaller. Timeliness. And then finally, in what, 4-point type? Price. Yeah, that's the reason, and you know it, why people, they probably told you that. That's why they choose X. Let's give it up for Performance Automotive Repair. Great job. Okay. I was telling the gentleman in the back, I actually do 7 hours of this, but I'm not going to subject you to that because I know you want to go to lunch, all right? But I know, based upon the SWOT analysis, this is probably a topic we all have to deal with. Handling difficult situations with employees and customers. Who does have this issue? Okay? Well, believe it or not, even at the happiest place on earth, at Disney World, they have this issue. Now, at Disney, they don't have employees. What do they call the people who work there? Cast members, and they don't have customers. What do they call the people who visit the park? Yes. But even at Disney World, they occasionally have upset guests, people who look like this. And you probably can relate to this picture. So Disney takes them through takes their cast members through this process. It's called LEAD. It's the Disney way. So what do you think the L in LEAD stands for? They have an upset guest. The first thing they do is what? Listen. And sometimes that's all people want, is someone who's going to listen to them. And as we said, listen to understand. Don't listen to respond. And when you listen, listen with your ears, your eyes, and your heart, and the other person will believe that you are truly empathically listening to them. How about the E? What does the E in LEAD stand for? Empathize. Have you taken this class before? All right, empathize. And you could even say something like this. You could say, well, Ron, I understand how you feel. In fact, if I were you, I'd be even more ticked off. Because it's really hard to be angry at somebody who agrees with you, right? They're coming in looking for a fight. And if you take the wind out of their sails, there's nothing left for them to do. How about the A in LEAD? What do you think that stands for? Apologize. And again, sometimes that's all a customer wants is an apology. And you can apologize without taking blame. You could say something like this. Well, Darla, I apologize that you feel this way. Now, what I heard is you shouldn't say, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Why? It's weak. It's passive. I passed a lady on the sidewalk the other day. She said, oh, I'm sorry. I'm thinking, why are you sorry? You have every reason to be here as I do. How about the D in LEAD? Do something. Do something. But here, don't do it too quickly. Ask them what you should do to fix the problem. Remember earlier we said people don't disagree with their own data. If they think they thought it up, they're more likely to buy into it. Let me give you an example. I heard about an elderly couple who had some work done in their house. Right after they laid brand new wall-to-wall carpeting. One of the workmen put a small burn hole in that new carpet. And pardon the pun, but the elderly couple were incensed. They come see the office manager. Now, he knows he can't afford to replace all this carpeting, but he takes the couple through the LEAD process. He listens to them, he empathizes, he apologizes, and then he said, well, how can we make it up to you? How can we make it right? And they said, we don't expect you to replace all this carpeting, but if you get us one of those nice area rugs to go over that little hole, that would work. He said, we could do that. And he did. Now, if you remember earlier, how many people does the average adult know? 400. Well, elderly people, Roger, they know everybody. If you know 400, they know 800, right? So they told all their friends and relatives about the situation, and the office manager actually saw an increase in his business because he listened, he empathized, he apologized, and then finally did something. 96% of your dissatisfied customers don't complain. Not to you, they won't, right? They will on Google. They will on Yelp. They'll tell all their friends and family. They're not going to come see you because they're afraid you're going to shoot the messenger, right? If customers register a complaint, and actually if they register a complaint with you, you should thank them. Of the customers who register a complaint, between 54 and 70% will continue to do business with you if the complaint was resolved. But take a look at this. The figure jumps to a staggering 95%. 95% of the customer feels that the complaint was resolved quickly. In other words, you match their sense of urgency. The 3M company claims that over two-thirds of its product improvement ideas come from listening to customer complaints. Reframe customer complaints. This is your marketing research department. What they're telling you is how you can improve your processes, your service, and your products. At Nordstrom, this is their entire service manual that they give employees. Use your good judgment in all situations. There will be no additional rules. See, providing top-notch service is the only expensive way small companies such as ours have to really distinguish ourselves from our competitors and lift ourselves above the pack. Well, thank you for your time, your attention, your patience, your endurance, especially your participation. Dennis, Roger, do you want to take the microphone? We're done. They're hungry.
Give Ted a big round of applause, you guys. This was outstanding, huh? We've got to have him back. Thank you, Ted. Outstanding. Really appreciate it.
If anybody would like some additional top 10 reasons why you're marvelous cards, if you'd like to make somebody else's day, I'm going to be standing in the back. I got a whole stack here. Please, please appreciate your employees and your customers.